come now to consideration of the Privileges Committee report. I call on the Honourable Dr Duncan Webb.
Mr Speaker, I move that the report of the Privileges Committee and its recommendations be noted. I'm grateful for an opportunity to present that report to the House as Deputy Chair of the committee and to present that report regarding the member's denial that he made a particular statement in the debate. On 24 September 2024, the Speaker ruled that the concerns raised by Jamie Arbuckle gave rise to a question of privilege. The concerns related to Tākuta Ferris's denial that he made a particular statement during the general debate on 18 September. And you, Mr Speaker, ruled that Mr Ferris, by denying that he made a statement, the statement complained about, may have deliberately misled the House. In his speech, Mr Ferris said a knowledge gap is a dangerous thing. It allows lies to be presented as truths. Politicians call this obfuscation, the art of making something unclear, intentionally vague, ambiguous, to conceal or obscure the truth, to confuse others' lies in other words. Many in this House are masters of it. The Honourable Winston Peters raised a point of order saying that Mr Ferris made the allegation that members of this Parliament are liars. It's long been considered an offence against the House to call another member a liar. The House operates on the basis that members behave truthfully and honourably. The Speaker noted at that time that he did not hear the statement in question and told Mr Ferris that if he did make the statement, then he should withdraw and apologise. To this, Mr Ferris said, I did not make that, or I haven't made that statement. The question before the committee was therefore whether in denying that he made the statement, Mr Ferris had deliberately misled the House. We reviewed the Hansard transcript of the exchange. We also asked Mr Ferris to provide written comment about the question of privilege, which he did. In that response, he stated that in his view, in his speech, there was no, quote, statement or inference of members of Parliament being called liars. We invited Mr Ferris to attend the committee to further explain his stance, but he declined that invitation. Standing Order 418 sets out a non-exhaustive list of examples of acts and omissions that may be treated as contempt. This list includes deliberately attempting to mislead the House or a committee by way of statement, evidence or petition. To be considered a contempt, there is a requirement that the attempt to mislead be deliberate, which requires a level of intent. Inadvertent misleading without intent should not be judged too harshly. Denying that a misleading statement was made may be quite different. It may involve a sustained course of action and judgment rather than a single moment. The committee found it difficult to reconcile the content of Mr Ferris's letter with the plain meaning of words he used in the House. We considered that the ordinary meaning of his statement can be understood to mean that many of the members of the House are masters of lying, and we consider that Mr Ferris was aware of this. As a consequence, we found that Mr Ferris deliberately misled the House. We wanted to reiterate that the House operates on the basis of members being assumed to behave truthfully and honourably, and the House must be able to rely on the truthfulness of its members in order to operate. In deliberately misleading the House, we considered that Mr Ferris had impeded the House in its ability to do so. For this reason, our conclusion was that Mr Ferris committed a contempt. We therefore recommended that Mr Ferris be required to apologise to this House, and I understand that has already occurred.
The Honourable Scott Simpson.
Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, Parliament is by definition a place of words, of many words, of millions of words. And it's a place where, notwithstanding the observations of some members in this chamber and also some members of the general public, actually words do count. And so I rise as a member of the Privileges Committee in support of the address just given by the Deputy Chair of the Committee. And I want to reiterate some of the significant points that the Deputy Chair has just made, because it was in his general debate speech on the 18th of September last year that Tākuta Ferris was given an opportunity to deny a particular statement having been made by himself by the Speaker following the raising of a point of order by the Right Honourable Winston Peters. During that general debate speech, the questions or the words that arose of concern were as follows, and I quote, Mr Ferris said, "A knowledge gap is a dangerous thing. It allows lies to be presented as truths. Politicians call this obfuscation, the art of making something unclear, intentionally vague, ambiguous, to conceal or obscure the truth, to confuse others. Lies. In other words, many in this House are masters of it," end of quote. And as the Deputy Chair has just said, it's been a long-standing and deeply significant matter in this House that all members come to the House with good intent. Now, we may disagree with members of the House about how they seek to achieve the intent with which they come to this place, but we take them as being honourable members and we take their word as being sincere, honest and truthful. And so it's always been an offence in this House to call another member a liar, let alone all members of this House liars. The Speaker told Mr Ferris that if he did make the statement, then he should withdraw it. That was after the Right Honourable Winston Peters raised the point of order. And then Mr Ferris responded by saying, quote, "I haven't made that statement," end of quote. It was a very clear and absolute denial of having made the statement that he just previously had. So the committee, based on its review of the Hansard transcript, considered the facts of the matter, and we considered that the issue was clear. The committee asked Mr Ferris to provide a written comment about the question of privilege, which he did do. The committee then invited Mr Ferris to a hearing of evidence. And I want to note for the House that Mr Ferris then declined that invitation to appear before Parliament's Privileges Committee. In his letter to the committee dated 4 November, Mr Ferris denied that he called members of Parliament liars and rejected that he intentionally misled the House. He argued that any, quote, "any average normal person, after listening to the dictionary definition of the word obfuscation, would agree with also defining obfuscation as lies in other words." And so Mr Ferris, in his written testimony to the committee, reiterated that he described many members of the House as masters of obfuscation. The committee was tasked then with determining whether Mr Ferris's denial that he made a statement during the general debate on the 18th of September amounted to a contempt of the House. In his letter, Mr Ferris confirmed that he stated many members of the House are masters of obfuscation. And he also confirmed his held view of what that term meant. His response suggested clearly that he was aware that the ordinary meaning of his statement can be understood to mean that many members of the House are masters of lying, and therein lies the rub. When inviting Mr Ferris to appear before the committee, we let him know that we wanted to understand why he simply did not address the matter by withdrawing and apologising before the issue escalated to a question of privilege. We also asked Mr Ferris if he had considered addressing the matter by making a personal explanation to the House. His decision to decline the committee's invitation to appear before it made it difficult for us to understand his view that he did not mislead the House. In short, Mr Speaker, Mr Ferris took sustained action in denying that he made the statement, both in response to the point of order that was raised at the time and again later in his subsequent letter to the committee. And it was evident to the committee that Mr Ferris believes that obfuscation is synonymous with the act of lying. And as a committee, Mr Speaker, we agreed. The committee found that Mr Ferris deliberately misled the House. To call members of this House masters of obfuscation is an allegation that members of this House are liars. The House operates on the basis that members are assumed to behave truthfully and honourably. If it were not so, this House would be chaos. Some may say that it's chaos already, but it would be more chaotic than if it was not so as a basic premise of debate, argument and discussion in this House. So in deliberately misleading the House, Mr Ferris impeded the House in its ability to do its work, and for this reason the committee found that Mr Ferris committed a contempt of the House. Misleading the House, Mr Speaker, is a serious matter. To have found that there was no fault in this matter would risk undermining the very fundamental principle of the operation on a day-to-day basis of this House. And on that basis, we determined as a committee that Mr Ferris be required to apologise to the House. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Call on the Mendes Marsh.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. So this is on behalf of the Green Party in relationship to the question of privilege concerning a member's denial that he made a particular statement in debate. I take note of the comments by the previous two speakers. I also take note of the report that I myself participated in the committee and endorse the recommendations. I think particularly the aspect of description of events and what triggered this process to begin with should serve as a reminder of us all, including today, of the consequences of alleging that someone may not be behaving truthfully or honourably. So with that, we acknowledge the mahi that went into creating this report, and particularly the staffers who helped guide us in the writing of this.
The Honourable Shane Jones.
Mr Speaker, it's more in sadness than anything else I take this call, because Māoridom has such high expectations. When the younger generation come to Parliament, they'll not only bring the passion of the electorate they represent, but they'll bring enough humility to respect the House, which reflects the inordinately strong traditions of our democracy, one of the longest unbroken chains of democracy in the civilised world. There are three legs to this offensive stool. Number one, the committee must determine whether or not the words uttered were misleading. Number two, members of the committee must determine whether or not the misleading statement was known at that time to be actually inaccurate. And number three, it must have been the intention to mislead the House. Those three legs are laid out in our parliamentary encyclopedia. This young, inexperienced, largely unknown member has come to this House, levelled serious attacks against other members, which caused our party, through our whip, to make a formal complaint. These decisions are not taken lightly, but sadly the complaint cannot deal with the deeper virus. And the virus is that member, day after day, swaggers and shows an utter contempt for the obligations and duties that fall upon us as taxpayer representatives of the public. Look no further than the surreptitious manner of the politician, of that politician's apology. An attempt not to offer the apology in both languages. And I'm saddened by that, Mr. Speaker. I know that Te Reo Māori is one of our official languages. I know the member is allowed to use Te Reo. The people, however, who deserve the apology on the basis of a finding of contempt, they ought to have heard that apology in both languages of the treaty. An unwillingness to offer an apology in English shows contempt for the vast majority of the New Zealand members of the public who pay his salary. Of course, this is a small element of seeking to deploy and weaponise tikanga and Māori culture to pretend if you have Māori blood and you're in this parliament, you don't answer to the same rules and regulations. I pray and hope that the New Zealand public at the next electoral experience deliver an appropriate response to that level of superciliousness. We cannot afford to have this ethnic warping of our democracy. If you come to Parliament, you accept, along with your fellow New Zealanders, an obligation to uphold the duties of being a parliamentarian. If you do not want to uphold those obligations, get another job. Don't come and deprecate, don't come and take for granted, and do not trivialise the inordinate privilege that many other Māori members of the iwi community, of the Taitonga community, have sought to achieve the status of being here to replace such people as Eruera Tirikatene, such people as Patterson from Ngaitahu in the 1800s, such people as the All Black Tutakawa Wiley. Do you really think that they would have thought there was any honour in giggling, trivialising, demonising this Parliament through that display of not only committing an act of contempt, but accusing my leader, Winston Peters, and others of being liars? Now, there may be elements in our iwi community who think this is a gross overreaction. This is not an overreaction. This is a level of the obligation that sits upon everyone. Because when we are here as parliamentarians, Mr. Speaker, we have an indivisible duty. And it's about time, and this report actually affirms the importance of not splitting rules to suit people who enjoy a different ethnicity. Yes, he did make an apology in Te Reo. I've been speaking Te Reo since that guy was born. And I would have had no hesitation in offering an apology with humility to every single New Zealander who I have treated with contempt, and I take for granted the money they pay every day for the handsome salary we enjoy as public servants. No, this member beats to a drum where he believes he's impervious. He's beyond any of this criticism because he's blessed with some pure non-muggles Māori blood. Shame on you for bringing your own people into disrepute. Shame on your leaders for not insisting you show whakaiti, you show humility. And shame on you for misrepresenting and bringing whakamā to the long list of leaders who have held the positions of the Māori seat. There is no honour in this arrogant, no honour in this childish, no honour in this contemptuous display of disregard for what it means to be a parliamentarian. And I'm very proud to stand and give this speech and to stand with the architects of this report. Too afraid to turn up in the courtyard of Parliament's highest committee. No, it's in here. I can quote, the invitation was given. The invitation was not taken up. From the very member who says that a number of us are too afraid in our political life to stand up and be counted. So to the committee who have come up with this report, sadly, there are likely to be other instances. Let it be a lesson for those of us who treat with absolute privilege that we are here, that this report is an indictment. This report is a very sad day. And hopefully, sir, there is the opportunity for the person in the wrong to learn a lesson. That without whakaiti, there is no rangatiratanga. The rangatira who does not understand duties and obligations is whakahihi, whakamanamana. These are Māori words that we know very deeply, and they call for a level of modesty, humility, and the tohu of a rangatira. Thank you very much.
Call on Pamjit Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to endorse the report back from the Privileges Committee. This is a serious matter where the committee found that Mr. Ferris deliberately misled the House. It's one thing to, in the heat of debate, to make a regrettable comment. It is another thing to then deny that and refuse to apologize at the first available opportunity. That denial is what the committee was asked to investigate. Mr. Speaker, the committee worked constructively to investigate Mr. Ferris' actions, to see what was said and what he was saying, what he said. After reviewing the Hansard transcript, committee agreed that the statements were an offense against the House. What we could not understand was why Mr. Ferris continued to deny what was said. It was there for all to see on the footage and recorded in the Hansard. The committee, yes, the committee did invite Mr. Ferris to front up and explain himself. He refused. He instead wrote a letter that the committee found contradictory and confusing. Following the report back, Mr. Ferris apologized to the House last night around 7:30 p.m. I trust that statement was sincere and that Mr. Ferris has taken some time to reflect on this breach of the tikanga of this House. Mr. Speaker, this Parliament cannot effectively operate unless its members behave truthfully and honorably. Just like maraes, temples, or churches have its own tikanga, so too does this Parliament, which must be respected. If we can't take someone at their word, the trust and integrity of our democratic institutions will be eroded. Many great leaders, including from the members' own party, who have been members of Parliament, have understood that. They earned their mana and commanded a great level of respect from across the political spectrum, not by questioning the integrity of their political opponents, but by championing what they believed in while respecting the tikanga and rules of our democratic institutions. And it's those democratic institutions which make us a great country. Looking across human history, looking around the world, Mr. Speaker, we can say that we are very lucky to be one of the few societies where decisions are made based on a genuine contest of ideas. We must carefully guard that. Mr. Speaker, from time to time, it may be the opinion of some members that the rules of this Parliament are no longer fit for purpose. We have seen the rules of this place change over many years, adjusting as social, cultural, and political norms change. And I acknowledge that this process has to be a process that is conducted in a very careful and considered manner. If MPs disagree with the rules, there is a process to change them. But until then, it is essential for the order of the House that the rules are followed in their existing form. As an example, a future change that MPs may wish to consider is how apologies are delivered to the House. It may be desirable that the apologies are delivered in the same language in which the original breach was made, and perhaps at the time when most MPs are in the House. For example, before the question time. That may or may not be appropriate, but it is something, Mr. Speaker, to think about. Thank you.
A point of order, Maria Mino.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, just to seek some clarification, I understood that once the apology is provided, that it doesn't go to a debate. I'm not sure, and I'm happy to get that direction clearly from you, and particularly to the detail and the measure in which it's been provided in the speeches that I've heard so far. Your clarification, please, sir.
There is a report from the Privileges Committee that's being debated. So that the reference to the apology can be in the context of the report. Reflections on the content of the apology cannot be questioned. That what has been raised is the issue of delivered in the two languages of Parliament or otherwise. Now, in the debate, it's not an unreasonable point to raise, in my opinion. I've been listening to this debate carefully to ensure that there was no questioning of the apology that was delivered last night, which has been accepted by the House. So that I think this is just part of the situation we're in, where there is going to be increased use of Te Reo Māori in the House. And Dr. Palmer has just put a suggestion that might like to be considered by the Standing Orders Committee at some point in the future. But these comments are made in the nature of a debate. I want to make it very clear that I've heard no questioning of the apology that was delivered. There was quite a lot of lecturing about how people might like to think about things, but that's not uncommon in this House. Tākuta Ferris.
Tēnā koe te pika. Ahau, he tangata kua roa i rungi ngā marae o te motu. Ia te whakangungua ki tōku marae ki te kāinga. Ahau, tētahi, ko oti ahau, te tuhi i ngā tohu paetahi e toru. Ko oti ahau te tuhi i te pae rua. E harau i te tauhau ki te reo Pākehā me te whakatakoto kupu i te reo Pākehā. Marama pai. Kāre, e hara hoki ahau i te tangata karo i te kupu whakatika. I te whakatika hi ahau runga i te marae kei te pai noiho. Ka tuahau, ka whakarongo, ka whakahokia he kōrero. Taku whakarongo ki ngā kōrero i roto i tēnei whakawhitinga kōrero, he hanga tūtū te puehu. Kei te pai tēnā, engari mena ko koe te kai whakatūtū i te puehu, ko tōna tikanga. Ka noho mai koe ki te whakarongo i te kupu whakahoki. Nō reira, e hara i te meka tōro hia e nei kupu aku, kua rongo au te whakahau o te kōmiti. Kei te pai. I hāpaingia, i whakamana hia taua whakatau, i heke mai ki konei ki te whakapāha ki te whare. Kei te pai. Heoi anō mo te whakaiti i a hau me tōku whānau, e kore au e whakae. Nō reira ko te tangata nei e kaha karawhiu i te kupu, kātahi ka rere atu. Kei te pai, tāria te wā. Tāria te wā tāua i runga i ngā marae o te motu. Heoi anō. Ka tahuri au ki te reo o te whare nei. Mr. Speaker, I'm not afraid of consequence or anything like that. I made some statements on the day. I wrote the speech. I'm the holder of 3 undergraduate degrees and a master's degree, written plenty of stuff. I know the nuances of the English language and I know what I wrote. And that's the view that I had on the day. It's the view I maintain. There is a...
Just let's suggest that we're debating the report itself. It's not the right time to go into a justification that might suggest that the report is wrong. So I don't mean to interrupt the member, but it's there's a point where we have to move on, and that there is what comes before us that's more important than what has happened some time back. So can I just suggest that in the remaining time the member concentrates on the process. You don't have to use all the time, by the way, and not get into a position where there is now a contest from the member about the event for which he has apologised to the House.
Kia ora. Tēnā koe te pika. I'm not offering any contest. I accept the ruling.
Okay.
I accept the ruling, and that's fine. I understand that the House is uncomfortable with me, and I think that's fine too. Tiwi Māori have long fought to be heard appropriately. And our presence here is in that vein. And we come here, I come here, yeah, as a younger Māori than Shane, but I'm a man of 46 years. I have 3 children. 2 of them are grown, they're nearly all out of kura. We've been doing this a long time, and we understand it well. And we know that our position will agitate in this House, but it is a position that our generation was born into, raised, taught, developed into, and it will not be going away. It's not disrespectful. E harau te tangata whakaiti tangata. E harau te tangata whakaiti kawa. What we're doing is not disrespectful. And as I sit here, well, I was sitting upstairs actually, and someone was suggesting that the mana of te reo Māori may not be enough, may not suffice in this 2-partner House. I'm not too sure about that. And if deeply, truly, this whare believes that an apology in te reo Māori may not be enough, I can guarantee you this: my apology in te reo Māori means more than my apology in English. So I'll leave it there. I'm okay with the ruling. I may not be okay with some things that were said, but we'll wait for an opportunity on a marae somewhere in the future. And tēnā koe te pika, kia ora koutou.
Before I put the question, I just, in respect of that, want to make it absolutely clear that there is no question that the apology delivered by the member last night is accepted by the House. There were debating points raised, that's what you get. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Those contrary will say no. The ayes have it.